You know, I really feel bad for Crocodile. I really do. He has a lot on his plate right now, right? Running a business is not easy, and let's just be straight up, he has to be the one to run pretty much all of the Cross Guild. I mean, Buggy is Buggy, so he has to deal with his nonsense, right? Occasionally, Buggy will go and rile up the entire Cross Guild to be like, we're gonna go find the One Piece! And Crocodile's like, no, that wasn't what the business plan was. That wasn't the strategy. Why are you messing this up? And I mean, Mihawk is there as well, but essentially, Mihawk has been unemployed for like 20 years. He's been living in a vampire castle, hanging out, drinking some wine, occasionally traveling the world and cutting swordsmen down, just kind of doing whatever he wants. You know, Mihawk doesn't have really great business acumen. He didn't go to school for that. He doesn't have the bachelor's degree in business management. So this is all on Crocodile right now, and he's probably going to have like migraines after this is all over. Okay, can Logias get migraines? That's a discussion for another day. I'm gonna write that down. Can Logias get migraines? Okay, so there was a question that was in the last SBS 111 that I actually missed. I didn't cover it when I did the SBS video like over a month ago. It wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't like a crazy amount of lore, but it was a little bit of lore. It actually did drop some information about the Cross Guild, and so I just kind of forgot about it, but let's just move back to it now. This is the question that somebody asked Oda. I don't really understand the Cross Guild system. You said it was like a company or a business, but is it profitable? If they give money to civilians who kill the Marines, I think they would go bankrupt pretty quickly. This is from somebody named Uton. All right, you know what? I actually like that people are asking these kind of questions, because Oda did talk about this earlier. He references another SBS where Oda said the Cross Guild is like a business. It's like a corporation, right? And there's follow-up questions to that. Like, right, but how does it work? Especially when you consider that, and I understand, like, there's no way that regular civilians or bounty hunters are going to be bringing in the big names like Akainu. I think Akainu effectively, through the Cross Guild bounty system, has the highest known bounty right now at 5 billion berries. The only people that were ever higher than that were Whitebeard and Roger, and they're both dead. So, I mean, you could dig up their corpses, and hey, it did say dead or alive. Can you go and be like, hey, nobody ever really claimed Whitebeard's bounty. If I dig up his corpse and give it to you, do I get 5,046,000,000 berries or whatever it was? Anyway, so like, yeah, Akainu really strong, so there's no way nobody's taking him down and stuff like that. Then again, people would say the same thing about Garp, and Garp was able to be taken down by the pirates at Hachinosu, so it only makes sense that like Aokiji and Blackbeard and everybody are going to bring maybe Garp to the Cross Guild, or maybe the Cross Guild's going to go to them, and then that's how that exchange of money is going to happen, perhaps? Who knows? But certainly you're going to be at a net loss if you're constantly paying out random civilians for hunting Marines. Now, there is a psychological aspect of this, and Oda touches upon it here. This is Oda's response. The only ones who would be troubled by the existence of the Cross Guild are the Marines. The fear of not knowing who will attack you or from where destroys your morale. So that's a pretty good angle. The Marines as an organization, right? In like general, they're supposed to be defending the people, upholding justice, all that stuff. We know there's a lot of corrupt Marines in the system, but I would honestly argue that like it's not the majority of Marines that are corrupted. Once you also have to factor in that the majority of Marines would be probably the infantry, not the officers. And I think when you join the Marines, most, maybe not all of them, maybe some join the Marines for very nefarious reasons, but I think most people that decide to sign up and join the Marines are doing it to uphold the ideals of that organization, to defend justice and help all the civilians of the One Piece world. Well, at least the civilians that are allied with the world government. That's a big factor as well, right? So if you're going out to go to protect the people, but you have to watch the people to like stab you in the back and bring your ass in to be like, oh, we caught a lieutenant, let's go get him, you know, some bounty from the Cross Guild or whatever like that. Sengoku and Suru were even talking about this at the Marine HQ. They were talking about how, like, you know, ever since we implemented the bounty system, we should have understood that something like this could have happened someday, where that whole system could be flipped back on us, okay, by the pirates, right? They just didn't have, they just needed somebody with really good business acumen to, you know, bring them all together, and it turns out it was Crocodile. What do you know, right? Crocodile, Buggy, and Mihawk. Unlikely trio, but here we go. Let's have an entire series just about them. So Oda goes on to say, as the Marines slow down, the dark companies of the underworld can operate more easily, meaning they make more money. The Cross Guild serves as the public face, while the dark companies pay for the bounty sums. There's even a dark side of the world that gambles on which Marines will be killed, resulting in even more money from society that contributes to the fund. So really, they're making a significant profit. So originally, I used to think the reason, like, where the Cross Guild was getting all this money to pay out hundreds of millions of berry to all these different civilians that are bringing in Marines, you know, was from Crocodile. Like, what Crocodile and Mr. One had been doing for like the last 2 years had been forming their own organization or working closely with the underworld and amassing a shit ton of capital, like getting a bunch of money in their resources, in their coffers, to use to start a new organization, right? So that was what I assumed up until now. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're going to implement the bounty system, it doesn't really matter how much money Crocodile has, you know, unless he has like trillions of berry. There's no way that he's going to be personally able to pay out all of these bounties, right? So Oda kind of sets this whole thing up where it's like, okay, think about the effect here. Cross Guild starts issuing bounties on Marines' heads. Well, that makes a lot of Marines a little bit, you know, skittish and a little bit like, oh, okay, we're maybe not going to be as, you know, active. We're not going to go out into the world as much because of our bounties on our heads. You know, I'm sure there's plenty of like officers in the Marines that are like, I don't want to get killed. I'm not going over there. Sir, there's an island that's being attacked by pirates. We got to go save them. We're the Marines. Yeah, but there's a bounty on my head. I don't want to die. Okay, I guess we just won't go over there, right? Which means the underworld, and this is a great thing that Oda brought up, because the underworld, specifically what we had is like the emperors attending Big Mom's tea party, like Giberson and Drug Peklo and Lufeld and Stussy, who was a legitimate member of the underworld. Like, she was the ruler of the Pleasure District. That was like a cover identity for her, but she still did that stuff, right? Okay. We also had like Umit, who is the shipping magnate that, like, his shipping yards were attacked by the Revolutionary Army, so they couldn't get food supplies to Marijois, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's a great way to bring that underworld aspect of the story back into the forefront. I think that's ultimately what Oda's going to do with the Cross Guild. Every group in One Piece that doesn't have like a strict alliance right now, or is just kind of wandering off somewhere in the sea, I think is eventually going to find their way to Cross Guild, and then it's going to be Cross Guild, and then the Yonko, and which of course includes the Straw Hat Pirates, and then we have the World Government and the Marines, and all these groups are going to kind of coalesce together in this big epic final battle in the story. So when it refers to like Law, for example, like Law and Beppo are kind of just out there in the world right now. Their crew was annihilated. They don't really have a lot of allies, so I think they're just going to end up at Cross Guild eventually. And so Underworld, sort of the same thing. Right. So Marines stop doing as much activity, the underworld starts to kind of gain more purchase on the world, like quite literally, like purchase isn't like grabbing onto something, but purchase as like finances and stuff like that, right? It's like, oh, okay, so there's less cops around, there's less doing stuff. That means the underworld can get away with more shit, right? So they're going to start doing that more. And so they raise a lot of money, and then they pay out the Cross Guild to keep that system in place, because the only reason that there's less Marines active in the world is because of the Cross Guild. So that's kind of the exchange there, where the underworld, like Umit and like Giberson, who's like the concealer, he's like a smuggler and stuff like that. So, you know, all the money he gets from smuggling and stuff, he'll probably pay out to the Cross Guild a certain percentage. Umit pays a certain percentage. I'm assuming there's a new ruler of the Pleasure District just because Stussy's not there anymore. There's probably somebody else that took over after Stussy. Maybe that's where Black Maria ended up if she's still alive. I don't know. You also have Drug Peklo, who might be responsible for selling drugs in the One Piece world because his name is literally Drug. But also he is what's he called? The Major Undertaker is Drug Peklo. So I feel like he's also like, he sells like body parts and stuff like that, like kind of gruesome sort of like Undertaker from Black Butler, kind of like that sort of business. But maybe he does a bunch of other things. He does the drug dealing on it as a side thing. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, they all get money from their operations, which are booming. They pay it out to the Cross Guild. I'm sure Crocodile is the one that handles all the money. I'm sure Buggy is like, oh yeah, give me the money, I'll make sure it's paid out. And Crocodile like beats the shit out of him. He's like, no, all money goes through me. It's Crocodile. He gets all the money. He's like, all right, yeah, all right, this looks good, yeah, okay. And then they pay out whoever brings in the Marines' heads as the bounty. There you go, okay? So that is the system of how effectively the Cross Guild works. Now, remember, Morgans is also a member of the Underworld, all right? He's part of this as well. He's raising some money behind the scenes too, okay? Also, they bring up the idea that there's certain places in the world, probably like illegal gambling dens and things like that, where wagers are placed, So this is kind of going to like Yu Yu Hakusho a little bit. There was that club there that would like bet on random things involving demons and then like the Dark Tournament and everything like that. That kind of shit occurs in the One Piece world as well. It's just not at like the forefront of the story, so we don't see it all the time. But there's going to be like a bunch, there's some backroom deals going on in some casino somewhere in the world. Maybe a casino, maybe after the events of Alabasta and Marineford, after he was freed from Impel Down, Crocodile really loved running a casino, and that's what he's been doing the last 2 years, establishing an entire chain of casinos all over the world where a bunch of money can be. I mean, that's not a bad way. If you just want to gain a shitload of money, running a bunch of casinos is probably not the worst way you could do that, right? People just going in and gambling money. You could always fix the odds and whatever to make it more profitable for you. So that might be where Crocodile got his money, right? So in the back room or in the basement of one of Crocodile's casinos somewhere out there in the world, you have Umit and Gibberson and Drug Peklo all sitting around a table, all placing like bets. And these guys are high rollers. So there's going to be like hundreds of millions of berries exchanged on like, who do you think's going to take down Vice Admiral Momonga? It's just like, oh, okay, so they're placing bets on where Momonga is going to get killed or who's going to take him in. There's even probably like a betting board, like the bets and the ratios and everything like that. What are the odds on like this bounty hunter bringing in a Vice Admiral, like all the top bounty hunters in the world? That was another idea for the Cross Guild. Like Crocodile was going to make a new Baroque Works essentially, and that got folded into Cross Guild. We don't know if he did that yet, but the idea of mercenaries and bounty hunters and assassins and all that stuff, they don't really have, they're in One Piece, they're around, but we just don't focus on them too much. Remember the cactus guy, Jean from Dressrosa? He was in the Coliseum, he was in the tournament, and he mentioned that, he was actually thankful to Luffy and Buggy and everybody because he was able to actually get a huge boom of his bounty hunter business by bringing in all of these escaped Impel Down prisoners that were freed, right? So you get to see them every now and then, but they're not really that focused. I thought like, oh, Crocodile's going to go out there and make a new Baroque Works, one that's more like, more quality rather than quantity. Instead of having the billions and the millions and all those officer agents and frontier agents, basically Crocodile just gets like an elite squad of like the best assassins in the entire One Piece world. Some of them know how to use hockey. Some of them are skilled in all these unique martial arts. Few of them have devil fruit powers. Like get like the 10 strongest assassins in the world. Daz Bones can be included in that group. So you got like, 8 or 9 others, and then he has that group, and it's like, okay. And he might still have that, by the way. Like, we don't know everything about Cross Guild yet. We don't know who all is part of that. All we know for certain is Crocodile and Mihawk are the effective rulers of the Cross Guild. Buggy is there as well, and he still does hold influence because all of the original, like, Kalibali Island inhabitants that were originally part of Buggy's delivery are still there, so they're obviously going to listen to Buggy over, well, I'm sure if Mihawk and Crocodile issued an order, they would still do it, because when Mihawk issues an order, you fucking do it. But, Buggy has that charisma factor, right? He's the one that rizzes up everybody in the Cross Guild, right? So he's an emperor as well. But the only other people we we know for certain are like Buggy's original crew, you know. So like you have Alvida and you know, have Moji and Kabaji. Galdino's also there as well. But yeah, there's got to be a lot of other really heavy hitters in Cross Guild, and you got to assume since the Underworld is so closely tied to the Cross Guild now, as Oda just said, you got to imagine the Underworld would probably want their own representatives in Cross Guild just to make sure everything is going smoothly, right? So, like, for example, you know, you have, Drug Peklo, okay, who's the Undertaker and stuff like that, right? He might want to have a couple of people there. He might also rule over bounty hunting as well because, you know, he's, like, all about undertaking and stuff like that. So he might want to be like, I want to make sure that everything in the Cross Guild, I want to know what's going on there because we're giving them money. I want to make sure it's being spent properly, like that kind of stuff. So they might send their own representatives into the Cross Guild to make sure everything stays there. Same thing with Morgan's. Morgan's might send some of his journalists over to the Cross Guild to make sure everything is taken care of there, and he can actually drum up even more interesting, like, because Morgan's at this point, with how chaotic the One Piece world is now, especially after Vegapunk's message and all that, he's completely, like, just going and doing whatever he wants. He's not being, you know, bossed around by the world government or the Marines or kickback funds anymore, you know. No, Morgan's is just like, screw this, I'm publishing whatever I want in the news, I'm writing about whatever I want, because he has a monopoly on the entire news media industry of the world. He's gonna use it, right? He's gonna write about anything. He could literally, like, front page news, the Cross Guild is the greatest thing that ever happened, and people are gonna be reading this like, what? But then ultimately they're like, well, it's in the newspaper, Margaret, I don't know what to tell you. I guess we should maybe be joining the Cross Guild. Look, I say this as a joke, but look at what happened with the guy that brought in T-Bone. He wasn't happy that they killed T-Bone, but it was like, hey, there's a lot of countries in the world that are not allied with the world government, and even the ones that are allied with the world government a lot of times are completely impoverished, and their kings are dipshits. So it's like, okay, I'm, you know, living in poverty, and like, this town I'm in is like, the king doesn't care, and like, there's pirates constantly attacking and kidnapping and murdering us. And so a way to escape that poverty is to slay a Marine Admiral or Vice Admiral or whoever and bring their head to the Cross Guild and get some money for my family. Desperation makes people do crazy shit. That's kind of the point, right? So, you know, that person reads in the newspaper, like, I can make money, I can make some serious bank on the Cross Guild, like, okay, maybe we should do that, you know. And you have people that would normally not be criminals. You have people that are just impoverished, living in some random kingdom in the West Blue or something, that literally just have no other option. It's either try to get money through the Cross Guild system or starve to death. And you have families to take care of and stuff like that, right? So I can even see, like, the father of a family being like, all right, everybody, I'm going out, and you know, I'll make sure to send some money back for you guys so you'll all be all right. And you have the kids that are like, where are you going, Pa? Where are you going? What are you doing? He's like, never mind that. And he, like, brings his rifle and his, like, big sword he had, you know, from when he fought in the war, you know, or something. And then he's just like, I'm going out to sea to, you know, get some bounties so I could send some money back towards you, right? Like, okay, like, that might have to be what happens a lot of times, right? So we're at a point right now in the story where everything is just, you know, the balance of power that existed up until now is all over the place, right? Okay, the world government and the Marines do not have as much of a tight grip on the world as they used to, even just 2 years ago. So now the Cross Guild's popping up, Luffy's an emperor, Buggy's an emperor. This is all insanity, right? And so Morgan's is just printing whatever, and it just, no regard for anything. And so eventually, yeah, Emu is, if Emu could, probably would be pushing the button on that giant sky laser, like, all the time. There seems to be a cooldown period or a recharge period on that, okay? But, like, you know, if Emu ever got their hands on the Mother Flame, would just be firing this all over the place, like, just wipe this out. The third age ends, let's start a fourth age, right? This is just not working at all. Last thing I wanted to bring up here, in regards to the Cross Guild and the Underworld and all these other groups in One Piece, do you think that at any point Dragon, who is the, you know, the leader of the revolutionaries, obviously, ever would have had to, like, work with the Underworld? You know, like, Dragon is, of course, a force for the people. That's what the Revolutionary Army is for. But I'm interested because it's like, I don't think, he was already part of the Marines and he realized there'd be no justice there. So he left the Marines and he started the Freedom Fighters and stuff. But I don't know. I think about it every now and then, like, Dragon might have had, and the Revolutionary Armies in general might, like, the commanders might all know about this. They might have had to work with the Underworld on certain things to ultimately, try to bring down the Celestial Dragon system. Like, they might have had to ally with other groups in order to make that work. Remember that stuff that was, what was it called? It was like a type of, like, liquor ore that was discovered at Dressrosa in the underworld shipping and stuff like that Doflamingo was working on. Also, it's really important to mention that, yes, Doflamingo was also part of the underworld, but I don't think all the underworld, like, works together, like, in one unified, like, business. It's not the same way. Well, they do and they don't. Let me put it this way. I don't think Morgan's was privy to all the stuff that Doflamingo was up to. They're in the underworld, okay? So they're gonna keep secrets kind of from one another. They're all working in the same underworld of One Piece. They might have to do business deals with each other, but that doesn't mean that, like, Lou Feld is gonna list off all of his finances and give it to all the other members of the underworld so they know how much money they're all making. Like, that's probably not how it goes down, right? But I'm curious. So, like, in the case with Doflamingo, he was like Joker. He was really evil and messed up. A lot of stuff horrible going down at Dressrosa, which is why the revolutionaries got involved there. But who knows? Like, Dragon mentioned before, they were short on finances. Maybe at some point he went to Lou Feld, who was the Loan Shark King that originally funded Mads, and was like, hey, we need, we're starting up this operation called the Revolutionary Army. There's not very many of us, but we need some money. We need some startup capital in order to try to bring down the Tenryubito. And I could see them going into Lou Feld's office, and he's smoking a huge cigar, and he's got a bunch of men with guns, and, Dragon and Ivankov go and sit down with him, and he's just like, bring down the Tenryubito system, huh? Oh, that's a big claim. But if you do that, you're going to have to do me a favor, too. I want a place in the new world government after this is all over. And I don't know. Do you think Dragon would have been above or below making those kind of, like, backroom deals with the underworld in order to get some money or start up stuff for his organization, right? I don't know. He was definitely never going to go to the world government because he even said as much to Vegapunk. Like, I can't believe you would have allied with the government. And Vegapunk's like, yeah, but you guys were too poor. I needed money. So that's how that went with Vegapunk. But, like, yeah, so I don't think he would have gone to the world government. But Dragon might have went to Lou Feld or went to, like, Umit or somebody did some kind of deal in order to get some money. It's very possible. Just wanted to bring that up. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's the end of the video. I wanted to bring up here at the end, though, and I'll be bringing this up periodically. I am going to be a guest at TECO. That is an anime convention in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania this year. It'll be from July 17th to the 20th. I hope to see you there if you can make it. I've been there last several years. I've always went there, and we've done panels for like the last 4 years or so. We did a One Piece trivia last year. That was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to try that again. I'm going to do the whole thing again, and it was really fun. And we're also going to do like a Q&A autograph session too. That's going to be great. But this year I'm an official guest, and that's really cool. So thanks to the staff of TECO and everybody there. But yeah, July 17th to the 20th, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hope to see you there. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching, signing out.